Mayor Fox and the Unity Band. We are indeed blessed. And we're blessed in many ways. As a matter of fact, it's been 2 long weeks since we have heard this man speak. Far too long for some of us. So please, backed by overwhelming popular demand, please welcome Kumu Ramsay Taum.
Thank you, Levitt. Mahalo, mahalo. Thank you, everyone, as well. I guess I didn't get it right the first time, right? Or was it a ... appeared or an exclamation? Maybe it was just a question mark. I don't know. Thank you. It's nice to be back, especially in such short time. And I don't know what a beautiful day and so many beautiful faces. Thank you for having me. Aloha. In our last conversation, for those that you may not have been with us, we were talking about ho'ala, this notion of a new time arising and awakening. And like anything else, when you get up, you have to have a cup of coffee to really get it going. So hopefully we had our coffee since. But immediately after the conversation we had last time, the question rose, could we expand on that and take it? Because I think it stimulated some thoughts about a particular area of interest that's going on, one in our community now, both here in Hawaii as elsewhere. And that's a conversation about diversity, recognizing the differences in our community and yet working together, and all the challenges that come with that. So I said, yeah, it's a challenging thought because there's so many ways of viewing that, right? And so I came up with this kind of came to me, that the conversation of Lokahi. Lokahi in Hawaiian means to unite, to work together, to come together, united. And the presentation, our sharing today, Lokahi Lessons from the Reef, hopefully will address this question or this idea. But before I start, let me open with this. In the spirit of Aloha, and in the spirit of ho'oponopono, the process of making right, please forgive me and my ancestors for anything that we may have done in deed, word, or action, or maybe inaction, that has created conditions in the lives of your ancestors, your families, your communities, that has created the eha, the huki, the discomfort and pain, the tension in your lives, that brought us here together today in search of harmony, peace, and healing. In the spirit of Ho'oponopono and Aloha, my ancestors and I, in turn, forgive you and your ancestors, your communities, for whatever it is you may have done, intentionally or unintentionally, that has created the condition in our lives and lives of those of us in the Pacific here in Hawaii that continue to challenge us day to day, but brought us here today for healing and forgiveness. It is in that spirit, in this reciprocity agreement of aloha and forgiving, that we begin anew, the new season. And so mahalo for that, allowing us to clear the slate and to begin anew so that we can lokahi. Now, interesting, this conversation about diversity. Some of you may know the definition. And the last time we talked about the notion of black and white, the dualism, the dualities of life. So, like anything else, words have many meanings depending on who's delivering them. Whether the cup is half full or half empty, as we spoke about the last time. And it's interesting that there's a negative as well as a positive energy around this word. And I would submit that even the word positive and negative have their own weighting, right? For instance, how many of you have ever felt ill and are not well, right? And you go to the physician and you say, I'm not feeling good. And they take a test and they come back, oh, Mr. Tom, your test is negative. Woohoo! Yeah, party, right? How did negative go to positive? Now, if you came back with the other word, sorry, it's positive, it's like, oh, right? So I want to be very careful that words are weighted, right? And we tend to use words according to our own intention sometime and our own needs. But in a larger organization, a larger community, sometimes we have to watch our words. As we said the last time, words can give life and words can take life. And so I'm very cautious about this concept of diversity because it has multiple meanings. There are some of them up there, right? And these are talking about, it's diverse, it's difference, the unlikeness versus the likeness. It edifies the differences. Talks about origins, where you come from, color, size, belief, all of those different things. They are different. But I've also found that in most cases, when we're having a conversation about diversity, it's not about the diversity as much as it's about the intention and intent and the desire to unify. I mean, most people who are not having problems with diversity is because they've unified somehow. They found a way that things make work. But once something starts to break down, all of a sudden it's about diversity. Right? So, in the spirit of Ho'oponopono, I said, rather than talking about what's not working, let's focus on the preferred condition. The preferred condition is unity. The preferred condition is Lokahi, with respect and honoring that diversity of what brings us together. And that's why the reef is so important. Because to me, Lokahi, the reef, defines diversity as Lokahi. Unity, agreement, accord, unison, harmony, agreed in unity. Right? If you've ever seen a healthy reef system, you'll see that you have multiple kinds of fishes. Right? You have yellow tangs, you have red lobsters, you have all the different, you have corals, you have rays, you have sharks, you have all these things. And what I notice is that there's no one guiding the system. Okay, yellow tanks, move by. Rays, your turn. Lobsters, you can go. And corals, start working corals. And there's really not, everybody's like, okay, let's follow the rules, let's follow the rules, let's follow the rules, let's follow the rules. Nobody is following the rules, and yet everyone is following the rules. Because the rule on the reef is harmony. It's a simple rule. And it really begins with respect. And more importantly, while everyone's moving around the reef, they're also honoring the place, the reef itself. And if we look at damaged reef, it's not because of those living on the reefs. It's because of those who are not on the reefs. Right? And so I turn to the reef system as a guide. In Hawaii, in Hawaiian culture, there's this term, ikanana no ike. I mentioned it last time. Ikanana no ike says we learn by observing. We are a people that live in land and sea. We are we are in the environment. So there's much to learn if we only listen. If we just listen and look. And in observing the reef, I recognize quickly that this concept of Lokahi is edified in the root words, which we talked about before. And now again, I'll edify for those that have not. But Hawaiian is rooted in root words. So the root words for Lokahi, lo, is a compression of alo, the first word in aloha. Alo means to be face to face, to be present, in front of, to be connected. So when we say aloha, we're saying to be connected with ha, the life-giving breath. This statement you hear, he alo, a he alo. Let's talk face to face. Not bite my back, but face to face. Yeah? And what it says is that I'm not going to just alo, face to face with you, but my connection is with kahi. We're connected as one. Kahi means one, an individual. It refers to a person. Someone else other than me can be kahi. My wife is kahi. You are kahi. Outside, one. But see, there is another greater meaning to this. It also refers to the one and only, the God that is good. Because it is from God that is good that ha is given, aloha, the life-giving breath. And in the absence of ha, we ha-la. Yeah. The la, the sun, a breath of ha goes with the sun and travels. We are therefore make. We are no longer present. So in the absence of God, the good, distributing a gift of ha, of life, I cannot alo with you. Aloha, to be in the presence of the divine breath, the Spirit of God in each of us. This is aloha. Now, when I was younger, I was taught the lesson that we are all made in the likeness of God. And when I look around the room, oh, boy, God is good looking. You know, but more important, God is all kinds, shape, size, color, all kinds of stuff. God is the reef. God is diverse. I have not seen one face of God. I have seen many faces of God. And that is diversity. And that is unity. And beginning to see, like the fish on the reef, how we all work together to represent the Spirit of God. Now, unfortunately, when we get all we all busting up one another because we cannot find that thing in what we see outside. We have to start turning to look inside. Because somehow we've lost the vision. We've lost touch with that thing that is greater than us. And so if you recognize a healthy reef system, it doesn't happen by accident. And so I'm not sure it can happen by accident in our community. It requires intention and aspiration to be more than we are than ourselves. Ho'olokahi. Everyone say ho'olokahi. Ho'o means to act and to do, the combination of things. So when we ho'olokahi, we're working together like the fishes on the reef and the reef itself. The system around it working together hand in hand, fin in fin, if you would, tail to tail. They have to work together with intention and respect for one another's space and existence. This is a message from the reef. And so as we talk about ho'olokahi in our community, I revisit last week's conversation that we're moving from a time in the season, many, many generations old, where we focused on dualism. The black and white, the up and the down, the right and the left, the good, evil, right, the wrong, all of those things, we separated ourselves. And if we explore diversity from that lens, guess what we get? More separation. Because the lens is already focused on finding that which is different rather than that which is same. Yeah. And so it's all about focus. And if you recall, the last time we talked about this metaphor is that if the glass is half full or half empty, it's a reflection perhaps of whether we are giving, pouring, or drinking, giving or taking. In the new season, our intention, our aspiration, hopefully, is to see the glass not as pouring or drinking, not in the lens of dualism, but the lens of mutualism, the idea of unifying, hand in hand, working together, and recognizing that it is more about giving and receiving and not taking, and really about aloha. What is aloha? And there is the challenge. So because aloha, as we've said before, is, and I'll repeat, is not just a greeting. It's not just hello, goodbye, but aloha is a commitment. It is a commitment that says, your air is my air is your air. And I'm committed to you in this time and in this space to protect, maintain, and preserve that air, that space. Because if I damage it for you, I damage it for me. We're in this air together. Aloha. Right? Yeah, that's what it is. And so it also says that I'm acknowledging that divine gift, the presence and source of that ha within you, the I that is the I am. So therefore, when we speak, it's not me to you, but it's the I to I. Healo, face to face. And this is the opportunity for aloha. Now, if you cannot say aloha with that commitment, then just say hi. No commitment to I, right? Hi, how's it? See ya later. Right? But you say aloha. Oh, wow, now we're getting serious. Baka just said aloha. Okay, I gotta get down. Because rooted in the word of diversity, like Hawaiian, there is the English root and the word die. It's already about separation. The very nature of the word, the very nature of the concept is about two, twice, doubling, right? It's also related to the prefixes of by and dis and do, all duality type things, right? So this is one of the remnants that we'll be dealing with as we move from the season of dualism to mutualism. And it's what we focus on that will allow us to begin to recognize that when we take these roots and grow them to the fruits of divide, dilemma, dioxide, diverse, dialogue, diverge, we're still talking in the space of separation. You, them, me, us. So how do we get to Lokahi when the very terms we're using are rooted in separation? It's such an irony to me when I work with groups to say, we want to talk about diversity when they're really talking about how to get together. Somehow we have not gotten to the point where I can respect the differences, but honor the similarities and build on that's what's same. Now, mind you, I may be aware, but I'm not immune. We're all part of communities where we have these challenges. I work within the Hawaiian community right now. I can tell you, it's not a very good argument to say, we want to be treated the same because we're different. How many of you heard that conversation? Well, the reason we want this is because I'm not like you, and because I don't do this and I do those things, therefore we want everything you want. Versus the human condition says that we are all reliant and dependent on air. We all want happiness. We want families. We want love. We want land. We want whatever that is what's common to us, not what's different. But at the same time, like the keyboards on the piano, we all have our own frequency. We have our own note. And when we put those together, we can make beautiful music. But there aren't too many songs with just one note. The trick is how to start playing the music. In early in my days, I was actually interested in thinking about the priesthood. And I started talking to a teacher. He said, "You're a preacher or a teacher?" Your teacher sounds like preaching, so I don't know. You might as well say be a teacher. But in that exploration, and I was reminded this at lunch, we were having the conversation, is that at the time I was learning in a dogma, a system, as much as I appreciated the content, the dogma told me that I could not worship in someone else's church or temple. It had to be my own. And so if I missed the 9 o'clock mass, I cannot go to 10 o'clock and make it up. I haven't met my obligation. I got to be there at 9 o'clock. So as I began to explore the opportunities, I did visit my fellows and neighbors' churches and in their temples. And this is what I found out. If I got past the words, if I stopped listening to the words and started feeling the vibration, I began to recognize what moved the spirits of those people in that room. In one temple, it was ding dong ding 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 dong ding 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 ding. Ooh. I go to another one. I believe in one God, Father Almighty. And all of a sudden, I began to realize that whatever the prayer was, whatever the song was, there was a vibration that the guy next to me was vibrating. He was floating. He was moving. He was finding what made him high. It's what moved his spirit. And I began to recognize that each of us has our own vibration, and therefore the diversity of energy of how you hear God is different than the way I hear God. And to give each of us the opportunity to hear and connect to God and reach the diversity in each of us, that's the power of unity. Yeah? And it's unfortunate because sometimes we don't recognize the color on the reef if all we're looking for is yellow. Yeah? It isn't until the yellow is missing that we realize the value of yellow on a healthy reef. So, in our daily lives, how then do I begin to turn diversity into unity? How do I turn diversity into something that works for me rather than against me? It's by looking at the word diversity and understanding it also means an assortment of things. And by the way, there is no peanut dust in this presentation. I guess you put a disclaimer before I start. Yeah, sorry. You're going to sit in the back row. But you see, the fact of the matter is that when they all work together, it's an interesting collection of experiences. Therefore, ho'olokahi, the act of becoming unified, the act of being and behaving in one, as one. Now, don't get me wrong. to bring about unity, to make peace and unity. That's all a nice definition. But oftentimes we mistake the word Lokahi for I have to believe what you believe. I have to be in complete agreement. Aole. The concept of unity, or Lokahi as unity, is really solidarity. It says that while you and I may differ on an opinion, it's important that we work together now in this condition, in this time, in this place. You and I may not agree on whether the ocean is wet or dry, but in this canoe, we have to work together to get there, right? Unless we paddle together, we'll never get there. So at some point in time, it requires us to set aside our differences in opinions, as it may be, or even our beliefs, but begin to recognize that when we're in this canoe, we work in solidarity, right? Now, we're not going to throw you out of the canoe, but if you jump in, it's solidarity. It is in that unity that we begin to respect aloha and love the experience, one another. But we have to find that in us first. This is a critical part of this conversation. Now, so let's bring it back home. How many of you have heard of Hawaii as being a melting pot? Melting pot, show your hand. I hear that a lot. Oh, Hawaii is the melting pot of the Pacific. Well, if you take that out farther and you really go back to the roots of that conversation, a melting pot is really the discussion of metallurgy, metals. Taking a bunch of metals, melting it down, and they all turn gray. Anything but a reef. Gray. Right? In other words, everything that goes into this melting pot loses its face. It loses its identity, it loses its color, and everything becomes gray. I'd like to suggest that that is not Hawaii. Would you? That doesn't look gray to me. It certainly don't look gray out here. So what is it then? So I'd like to suggest that Hawaii is about hapa. Half of this, half of that. We're all mixed up. In my case, I'm 100% part Hawaiian. The part that's Hawaiian is 100%. The part that's not, it's 100% of that. I'm 100% part Hawaiian. And we are 100% part everything. So how do I describe that? Because in Hawaii, I would say that it's really beef stew. It's more a stew pot than it is a melting pot. Why? Because see, in beef stew, the parts, the ingredients, they don't give up their identity. You got the beef, you got the carrots, you got the tomatoes, you got the parsley, you got everything. But more importantly, you got the stuff that they combine together, which is really community. And that's called gravy. It's the flavor of the gravy. It's the taste of community. That's Lokahi. That's Lokahi. That's Hawaii. Yeah? And so I find far more nutrition in that than I do in the melting pot. Yes. Yeah? Now, the challenge behind making a good beef stew is you got to come to a boil sometimes. We got plenty of ingredients, but until you add the heat, it doesn't happen. So it's not easy to be beef stew, but when it's done well, it's ono. Yeah? Yeah. And why do I say that? Because in the absence of diversity, in the absence of heat, we get that. A reef that has lost its diversity, a community that loses its diversity and its respect for one another and what we have to contribute to the other. My strength is your strength. Your weakness is my weakness. We begin to work together. To think that we're all going to be the same is actually disrespectful. It does not respect and honor who you are, who I am, and how we relate. Each of us came into the world with a book. It's right here, called the hand. Everyone look at it. Look at you. This is the book that we all have, right? In this book is a lesson. You have the fingers, very self-evident. What's not evident is the spaces. Yet it all together, the diversity of the sizes of the fingers is what makes this functional. Right? They're not all the same size fingers, and they're not all thumbs. Can you imagine if we're all thumbs? That would look awkward. Even more awkward if we're all middle fingers. Oh. You stop waving at people when you say hi. It better be aloha. But you notice that some of us think that we're the thumb and we can put everybody under it. But when in reality, you look at the hand, everyone else is still bigger than us. Right? And it's when we work together that we can accomplish things. But regardless of whether I'm doing it by myself or in combination with others, it usually all works out. And when it doesn't, the guy in the middle stand up, tell you otherwise. Explain that to the next guy. But in the end, you have to trace it back to our origins. And whether you're the big finger, the little finger, the thumb, we're all connected to the palm. We're all one family. We have to work together, sometimes separate, sometimes together, but we're all connected at the palm. It is in that diversity. Now, this is not a new idea. In 1963, 54 years ago, this president came to Hawaii, and this is what he observed in his presentation and speech to the mayors of our country. And he said, "This island represents all that we are and all that we hope to be." And he was saying we, the United States, us. He was saying we. And what was he referring to? He was referring to the diversity of a community that found itself in the middle of the ocean, working together. Now, granted, we've had some difficulties and challenges. That's part of life and growing and learning to love and respect one another. But 54 years ago, he said this. Where are we today? Are we closer or are we farther? In the new season, hopefully we will realize these dreams, these aspirations, these observations. Because even before this president, there was another man, and he made the same statement. Our ability to reach unity in diversity will be the beauty and the test of our civilization. And I would submit the whole definition of being civil. Can we be civil? Because I would suggest that until we are, the Reef is much more of a civilization than the communities we live in. It is about intention. It is about commitment. It is about aloha. When the founding fathers of the United States came together and wrote the Constitution, even this statement today is being debated by some. Is what did they really mean? And some of you may recall this term. All men are created equal. To this day, we continue to call upon that, and yet we know that that may not be the case because not all men, all people are treated equal. Change one letter. It's a different proposition. We may have stated we're created, but are we treated equal? I would even challenge the word equal. What does that mean? Because on the Reef, it isn't equal. Okay? It's not about you have what I have, they will have. It's about equilibrium, which means that sometimes you have more than I do. Sometimes I give you more than I need. Why? Because that keeps us in equilibrium. That's called balance. And unfortunately, when some are more equal than others, you've heard that one, we don't have balance. In the pursuit of balance, in the pursuit of equality, we use diversity as the tool to get there, but in reality, we're just saying, how do we treat one another? Created equal, treated equal. What does that really look like? And so, I borrow then from another book, The Gospel of Thomas, saying 22, and this is what it talks about when the two become one, when dualism becomes mutualism. When asked, the teacher, Jesus, when does it end? How do we get to heaven? And he says this, when you make the two one and when you make the inside as the outside. And the outside as the inside and the upper as the lower. And when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male is not male and the female not female. And when you make eyes in place of an eye, and a hand in place of a hand, and a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then shall you enter the kingdom. When two become one. When we no longer see the differences, when we no longer rely on the differences to pursue my identity. I know who I am, I know who you are, I respect and love you for that, and therefore we are one because we're all connected to the one. That's the idea. This is when he said it will end. It will end when that happens. And I believe we're getting closer to that end so that we can really begin. This is the beginning of the end. And so in closing the last time, and I feel it's important we bring her back in because she said the same thing, Queen Liliuokalani in 1917. To gain the kingdom of heaven is to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. That is aloha. To see without looking, to hear without listening, to feel without touching. But more importantly, she says, all things in this world are two, divided, come together, but divided. But in heaven, there is but one. So the question is, how do we say that we're creating heaven on earth? By removing the two and becoming one. Yeah? It's recognizing that the assortment of those of us in the room represent much more than the individuals in the room. We become more than the sum of our parts, and not just some of the parts doing more. This is the power of aloha. This, I believe, is the power of Lokahi. And so I would suggest that the antidote then is this. It goes beyond tolerance. Diversity goes much farther than tolerance. It requires respect. It requires acceptance. But above all, it requires love. Aloha. And when we find that we cannot respect and honor that which is different outside of us, then we need to start looking inside of us to ask, what is it about me that is making it difficult for me to accept that which is different from me? Say this with me. This is an Auntie Morna would say. What is it about me?
What is it about me
that allows me to see in you what bugs me about you? Right? What is it about me that allows me to experience this, it, that, whatever it is, in such a way that I am repelled, that I'm angered, that I'm feared, and that I have to move away, and I create methods and practices of avoidance? What is it about me that is seeing that in the world around me? Because if I rely on the rest of the world to change in order for me to feel better, I will continue to be a victim of externalities. Lokahi says that we are one, therefore we find that unity. If anything, it's harmony. How do we make the notes, the black and white, the high and the low, work together to create the music that we all want to hear? That's all part of it. It's recognizing the vibration in each of us needs to be honored. So I'll close with this, that I believe that diversity, Lokahi, like the life on the reef, is about aloha. To be in the presence of the divine, we are of one mind, one body, and one spirit. This is Lokahi. We are Lokahi. We are unity. Aloha, aloha, aloha. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Aloha.